ELI 5. How do U.S. Marines and soldiers differ in the field? At the baseline level, I understand that Marines are an amphibious expeditionary force that the military can deploy at a moment's notice, while the Army is more of a sustained warfighting and occupying force. But in most modern conflicts, i.e. Middle East, that I've seen, the USMC is not doing too much amphibious warfare and is in the desert shooting at baddies just like the Army is. This is painting with a very broad brush, but it's ELI 5 so. Historically, and particularly in World War II, the difference between the Marines and Army was one of size, speed, and mobility. The Marines were a corps. That's a term of art that means 2 to 5 divisions, or basically the smallest military unit size capable of operating independently for an extended period of time. But they were still small, compared to field armies. So their doctrine emphasized using the mobility their small size created to their advantage. Move fast, isolate and bypass areas of resistance, and focus more on defeating the enemy in the field than on capturing territory per se. They also emphasize that every man is a fighter, and every fighter is elite. When you're small, you can't afford to have non-combat specialists, so every Marine is a rifleman first and another job second. This is where the few, the proud part comes from. The reasons for this were that they were expected to be engaged in relatively short-term missions. Capture an island, capture a beachhead or an airfield, take a bridgehead, etc. It was fighting for days or weeks, using whatever supplies were on hand, always within reach of gunfire and air support from the fleet. You don't need heavy tanks and heavy artillery when you have a radio that can order 16-inch shells on request. And you don't need to capture that hill if you can just isolate it and let the Army and Air Force shell/bomb it into oblivion later. The Army, on the other hand, is much larger, and has always been all about actually capturing territory. So their doctrine emphasizes movement in a more frontal fashion, relying on heavy artillery and heavy armor to crack resistance, with much greater numbers and much heavier resupply. They bring everything with them because they are their own backup. They're not punching a hole for someone else to enter through, they're doing the entry. And because they're so large, they also have a lot of non-combat specializations like intelligence and IT and finance and the like. Since Gulf Storm, though, that distinction has kind of disappeared. Modern battlefields haven't really justified the sort of mission the Marines envisioned for themselves, and so over time they've essentially morphed into a second army, but one that envisions itself as elite, and with less/older/crappier equipment. This has created an internal debate between the purest old school Marines, who want to return to a small light mobile force, and new thinkers who basically want to come up with a new mission. Plus a whole bunch of very dirty and very Byzantine Pentagon politics.